Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the Buffalo Wings. Our 2040 playoffs are about to begin. Was a historic regular season for the Buffalo Wings, who went 118-44 during the regular season here in 2040. So expectations are clearly very high for this team as we head into the playoffs. That said, we've had three consecutive first round playoff exits after winning 2 out of 3 World Series before that. So, what to expect from this team is definitely uncertain. We've also got a pretty tough matchup against the Los Angeles Dodgers. You may remember from last offseason that they picked up the incredible starting pitcher Harlan Campeau as a free agent, and will potentially be facing Campo tomorrow in game number 2, which will mean that it's going to be real important in game 1 today to hopefully get a victory against Ishmael Alvarado. Clearly, a record-setting regular season for Buffalo with those 118 wins. That being said, we are down a couple of key players. Starting catcher Mitch Houlihan ruptured his Achilles, of course, a week and a half after the trade deadline. Hit .299 this year for us. Very good defensive catcher, 2.8 WAR on the season. So that's certainly a hole in a lineup. And then we also lost the veteran pitcher Elvin Jimenez, who was 5-4 with 4 saves, more than a strikeout per inning for us. Good, solid reliever. Jimenez's loss will be easier to overcome than Houlihan's. And talking about Houlihan's loss, when we've come up with our playoff roster, we've actually made one move behind Jorge Barrios, our backup catcher, who is now our starter because of the injury to Houlihan. And we brought up Jared Obenchain, 24, almost 25-year-old, split the year between Utica and Albany. But he's been on our 40-man roster, and he's got similar defensive ability, a better personality, and a slightly better batting profile than David Medina, an international free agent signing who's come up through our farm system. They've kind of come up at a similar pace the last couple years since we made the trade to bring Mr. Obenchain on board. But just felt that if we need to use one of them, they're even defensively, and Obenchain's ratings are at least a little better than Medina's. Medina did hit .250 in 36 at-bats for us, but still was a well below offensive player. Hopefully, Barrios will handle the job well. Expect that he'll be able to generate some decent offense with his ability to draw walks. The loss of Houlihan definitely hurts, though, because this is a team that is built on pitching and defense, and we've gone from a well above average defensive catcher to a pretty average defensive catcher in Barrios. We've played real good ball in September and late August without Houlihan, so clearly our pitching staff can be productive without him. But in these playoff games where every pitch is going to matter, don't necessarily love relying on Barrios behind the plate every day. But that is the decision we find ourselves in. We did do our usual playoff roster swapping out a pitcher for a hitter. So 12 pitchers, 14 hitters on the playoff roster. Tegan Tiley, the veteran utility man, ended up missing out on the roster in favor of the youngster Alejandro Contreras. Came up and hit .412 for us with 4 homers and 34 at-bats. So Contreras will probably be a utility guy against right-handed pitching, play every day against left-handed pitching in the playoffs, but felt that he's a better bat and better defensively than Tiley. No other real surprises. Tylen Hotaling ended up missing out on the playoff roster. kept up the youngsters Ishmael Velasco and Jesus Rivera, in addition to Contreras, to round out the roster. Pitching were some tough decisions we had to make given the depth of our pitching staff. Juan Aceves, who split the year between Albany and Buffalo, did good at both spots, doesn't make the team. Ben Borgian, the lefty who had a 1.69 ERA over the course of the regular season with us, also does not make the team. Ended up keeping up the youngster Jim Lance, who's got some pretty impressive stuff, especially in a relief role. Had a 2.35 ERA with 10 strikeouts over 7 2/3 innings for us. So he made the bullpen over Borgian. And then we shifted Eric Barbarito, who was second in the National League with a 2.72 ERA in a 14-3 record as our number 5 starter. Shifted him to the bullpen in favor of the veterans Barajas, Mendoza, Shazier, and Estrada. Figured we would go with the experience for these first two guaranteed, and hopefully many more than that playoff games. So feel we've adapted reasonably well to the injuries that we are forced to deal with. Like I said, though, a lot of pressure on us. Winning the 118 games, you'd rather go down in history like a 2001, you'd rather go down in history like a 1998 New York Yankees with a massive number of wins in the regular season than a 2001 Seattle Mariners with even more win than that Yankees squad, but they didn't even win or reach the World Series that year. So from that perspective, hope that we can have a long run in these playoffs. But as I said, with Campo looming in Game 2, this Game 1 matchup against Ishmael Alvarado is going to be very important. Taking a look at the playoff tree overall, the Guardians and the Twins with the byes in the American League and the Brewers and the A's both swept their wild card series 2-0. In the National League, we'll be facing off against the Dodgers, as we talked about. They swept the Expos, and the Padres, the NL West winners, will face the Phillies, who took 2 out of 3 against Diamondbacks in the only wild card series that was not a sweep. And as we prepare for Game 1 of this wild card series, on paper, our Wings are not in bad shape. 118 wins versus 90 for the Dodgers, so we were 28 games better than the Dodgers during the regular season. We were 2-1 against them in our season series. A couple of excellent pitching staffs. We were first in the National League in runs against. They were third in runs against. We had a very proficient scoring offense, 822 runs, third in the National League, while they were middle of the pack with 854. The Dodgers do have, not surprisingly, a bigger budget than us. I believe we're 23rd in the league in payroll, and the Dodgers at this point have the 5th largest payroll in baseball, and they've actually got a lot of money to spend too. So they probably could have made the team better than they did, but will be content taking on the players that they've got here. Our ace, Alexis Barajas, 18-5 with a 3.40 ERA this year, 5.1 WAR for the perennial all-star and captain, is on the mound, and because they had to play a wild card series, they don't get to have their ace in Game 1. We'll be going up against Ishmael Alvarado, 32-year-old right-hander, 9-12 with a 4.69 ERA this year. As I said, with Campo looming in Game number 2, going to be very important for our Buffalo Wings to get a W here in Game 1. And we do get a 7-6 victory in 10 innings. Looks like our closer, Joe Scott, got the win in relief. Homer from Mike Broughton for us. take a look at the box score. Both teams scored 3 in the second. We came back and took a lead in the bottom of the third, but then they jumped right back with 3 runs in the top of the fourth to take a 2-run lead. We clawed back 2 in the seventh, and then Luis Comaduran, who we picked up before the trade deadline, run-scoring single in the bottom of the 10th. Offensively for us, Estrada, Comaduran, Romero, and Meza all had 2 hits. Mike Broughton had 3 hits, including the home run that we talked about. Barajas, an ugly performance from him. 8 hits and 1 walk led to 6 earned runs over 3 2/3. Fortunately, after that, our bullpen was excellent, allowing just 1 hit over the final 6 1/3 innings pitched. Lance, the rookie, Ruckel, the stopper, and then closer Joe Scott came on for the excellent relief. And we did get the Game 1 victory, which, as I talked about, very important for this team with the potential difficult matchup here in Game number 2. As I talked about, we'll be going against Harlan Campeau, who already has a win in these playoffs in the Dodgers' first-round series, 4-time All-Star, has led the National League in wins 2 out of the last 3 years, 22-6 with a 3.34 ERA, ridiculous 294 strikeouts, and a league-best 1.08 WHIP and a 6.7 WAR. The 30-year-old certainly going to be a strong candidate for the Cy Young Award in the National League this year. Although he's a tough pitcher, and we're going to likely struggle to come up with runs against him, we've got a good one on the mound on our side, too. The former 4th-round pick who came up in our system, Alexis Mendoza, 13-9 with a 3.54 ERA, 3.6 WAR on the season. He's not Harlan Campeau, but he can certainly hopefully keep us in the game. And we'll see if we can put some pressure on the Dodgers by taking a 2-0 lead in this series. And we do get the W, so that's a big one for Buffalo to get the win against Campeau. 6-3 win. Scott, who won Game 1, comes on and gets the save and relief. No home runs hit. We got a run in the third. They bounced back to take the lead with 2 in the fourth, but 4 in the bottom of the 5th. A Juan Estrada double, 2-run double by Comaduran, and a 2-run triple by Porter. So nice to see Comaduran and Porter, a couple of guys who were new to the Buffalo Wings offense this year, coming through with big hits for us in the game. A couple hits from Seifu and 3 from Estrada. Not a ton of offense for us today, but a decent amount of extra base hits, despite not hitting any homers. Campeau, 8 hits and 5 walks, led to 6 earned runs over the 5 innings. I'm guessing that could well be his worst performance of the entire season. Mendoza gave us a quality start, 3 earned runs over 6 innings. And then Barbarito, Ruckel, and Scott pitched scoreless relief over the last 3 innings. Comaduran, our player of the game. And we're in a decent spot now, clearly, with a 2-0 lead as we head to Los Angeles, but still got to get one more victory here to clinch our first postseason series victory in 4 years. Hard to imagine with the success that we've had during the regular season that's the case, but it is what it is. Here, Game 3 in Los Angeles, we will have the veteran Sincere Shazier, 30 years old, had a bit of a down year for him. The 16-6 record, very good, but the ERA ballooned to 4.76. That said, his Sierra was kind of where it was a year ago. His FIP minus was actually better than a year ago, but the ERA was certainly inflated. Thought about perhaps taking Shazier, bumping him from the rotation for the youngster Eric Barbarito, who had such a good year as our number 5 starter. But we have loyalty to our veterans. We'll see how he does going up against the winner of Game 2 in the wild card series for the Dodgers in Raul Grejdanis. Raul Grejdanis. That's how we're saying it. 25-year-old, looks like a pretty impressive pitching profile. International free agent signing from 2032. And he was 13-2 with a 1.88 ERA this year. 9 saves in 9 appearances in the bullpen. 170 strikeouts and 153 and a third innings pitched. A ridiculous 2.21 ERA plus, and almost as ridiculous 73 FIP minus and a 4.1 WAR. Clearly a very strong pitcher that we'll be going against today. Would say that for the second straight game, we are certainly on paper the team that doesn't have as strong starting pitching. We'll see what we can do against Grejdanis here in game number 3. And looks like it was a pitcher's duel, 3-1 victory, although neither of the starters was actually involved in the decision. Our old catcher, Andres Medina, hammered a home run against us after we waived and DFA'd him this past offseason. Actually, we just released him. So a 3-1 win for the Dodgers. We did take a 1-0 lead on a run-scoring double from Seifu. Solo homer by Medina off of his former battery mate Shazier to tie things in the bottom of the 6th. And then they got 2 in the bottom of the 7th to take a 3-1 lead as Blanchard hit a 2-run homer off of our stopper, Ruckel. So a loss for Ruckel in relief. Shazier did a really nice job. 2 hits, no walks, 6 strikeouts over 6 innings. The bullpen didn't get the job done today. Grejdanis, also a solid game. He was named player of the game after allowing 2 hits and 1 walk while striking out 5 over 5 innings. I'd say that statistically a better game for Shazier. But when you're on the winning team, you're going to get those type of honors like player of the game. So things have tightened up a bit now. Pressure still on the Dodgers since they are at home and they are down, but certainly gotten more challenging for us here than we would have hoped going into a Game 4. The lefty Juan Estrada, the veteran, on the mound for us today. 10-4 with a 4.10 ERA, had some injury issues, but is a two-way player, still a very valuable guy for us. Going up against Ricky Foss, left-hander also, 9-6 with a 2.98 ERA this year. Not an absolutely intimidating pitching profile, particularly after the pitchers we faced the last couple days in Campo and Grejdanis. We'll see if we can get the job done here. Would certainly love to not have to go back and face a Game 5, particularly with the fact that the Phillies have already swept their series against the Padres, so they are resting up and waiting for whoever comes out of this other National League Division Series. And it's still uncertain who it's going to be. 6-1 victory for the Dodgers. So our bats have gone cold these last couple days with just 1 run in each game. Estrada saddled with the loss. Dodgers jumped on us relatively early with 4 in the 3rd and runs in the 4th and the 5th. We clawed back 1 in the 7th. But it was a pretty rough game for our bats. 2 hits from Romero, and then 1 from Bentley and 1 from Contreras. Not a ton of offense against the left-handed pitching Foss, and a rough outing for Mr. Juan Estrada. So we will be heading to a winner-take-all Game 5 on October 13th in Buffalo, a matchup of that Game 1 extra inning matchup between Barajas and Alvarado. We'll get to replay that one and see if our ace can propel us to the National League Championship Series here in 2040, or after taking a 2-0 lead, will we have a extremely disappointing fall in the NLDS. And looks like they have moved up Campo, not surprisingly, with the off days. He's on his regular rest, so that makes it even tougher for us. We've already beaten Campo once, and we're going to have to do it for a second time now since we couldn't take care of our business in Los Angeles. We'll see what happens. Campo, after we did well against him in game number 2 of this series, 1-1 with a 5.91 ERA in these playoffs, but after Barajas did awful for us in that opening day, which we did end up winning, he's 0-0 with a 14.73 ERA. So 2 aces facing off here in game number 5. And the Wings are eliminated in the playoffs once again in the first round. 6-3 victory for the Dodgers after taking a 2-0 series lead. The offense definitely struggled. Campo wasn't involved in the decision. Barajas took the loss. No home runs again. Taking a look at the box score, 3 in the 5th and 3 in the 6th by the Dodgers. In the bottom of the 5th, as we tried to come back, Deshaun Seifu hit a run-scoring triple. And then in the bottom of the 9th, when our backs were really against the wall, Coma Duran looks like he got a bases-loaded walk in the bottom of the 9th. So it seems like we had our opportunities in the 9th inning to try to get a W, but an incredibly disappointing finish to the season, especially since Campo only went 1 inning. I don't know if he got hurt. It looks like that's weird. They got pulled after 1 inning and only 20 pitches because he was on. He pitched 5 days ago, 108 pitches, so he was on normal rest. Kind of interesting that he only went 20 pitches and it doesn't look like he was hurt and they yanked him after an inning. But Daly came on. Wow, that's brutal for us. 6 1/3 innings of relief from a guy who had never pitched above Double-A ball until the playoffs. And he had a 6.86 ERA in Double-A this year as a 22-year-old. And he shut down our team. Well, didn't shut him down. 5 hits, 3 walks, 2 earned runs, scattered a lot of offense. But Barajas, incredibly disappointing playoff performance. 6 hits, 3 walks, 4 earned runs over 5 innings. Robbie Farrell, also not good. And then Eric Barbarita was good at the end. But when all is said and done, it's, as I said, a very disappointing finish for the Buffalo Wings. We'll go back to the drawing board this offseason. I know some of the haters who like to hate are going to get on us for our offense. You know, it is what it is. With the money we've got to spend, I think that the moves that we made in terms of last offseason and the trade deadline to bolster the offense were good ones. Clearly, we don't have a Shamar Jenneret on the team, and he was a big asset while we had him. We were 4th in the National League in batting average, 5th in OPS, 3rd in runs scored, 6th in hits, 4th in extra base hits, 2nd in strikeouts, 6th in walks. We admittedly don't hit a lot of home runs, so our slugging percentage isn't incredible, but the offense was pretty good. 3 losses in a row. I wonder if we ever lost 3 games in a row during the regular season. Obviously, we did it in September where we lost just 4 games. Lost 2 in a row in August, twice. Okay, we did lose 3 in a row, at least a couple times in July, so it wasn't something that was unprecedented for us this season, but clearly with a 118-win regular season, we weren't losing a lot of games, period, and we certainly didn't have any real long and protracted losing streaks, probably as bad as it got with the 3 losses in a row against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Thinking about next season, Do have some money available for extensions. Taking a look at our salaries, and we'll do a big deep dive on how everyone actually performed this year in our next episode. We can basically run it back with essentially the same team. Derek Bentley is going to be a free agent, kind of a utility infielder anyways. Steve Anderson, the shortstop who we brought back in his final arbitration eligible season this year, headed to free agency. He hit 258, 12 homers, 75 ribbies. Solid defensive shortstop, put up a typical Steve Anderson 3-WAR season. At this point, he's looking for almost $20 million a year with the youngster Contreras around to potentially take over at shortstop. Probably will spend the money we have available this offseason somewhere besides Steve Anderson. And then Daniel Meza, who we picked up in the offseason to help bolster our offense, hit 265, 21 homers, 74 ribbies, 111 WRC plus for us. We knew he was going to be a one-year rental. He'll be 33 at the start of next year. Imagine he's looking for one big contract, one additional big contract, yeah, even more than Anderson. 6 years, 21 million average a pop. So while we will have potentially some money available this offseason, we will have some potential holes to fill offensively, losing a utility infielder in Bentley and a starting shortstop and a starting third baseman / corner outfielder in Daniel Meza. Do have some optionality also, though. Still have the team option on Juan Estrada this year at $26 million if we really wanted to go crazy and try to free up some money. Team option for 5 on Nate Ruckel. Coma Duran is going to be making a lot in his final arbitration eligible year. Big money also expected for Juan Romero and Alexis Mendoza in arbitration. Mike Broaden's spot could be in jeopardy. Mitch Houlihan will likely be back for us. Team option on the injured Elvin Jimenez. And then a lot of younger players who are making the major league minimum or not much money. Closer Joe Scott to make about $3 million next year. So in our next episode, we'll do our normal deep dive on how everybody performed this off season or this regular season as we get ready for the off season. Start kind of trying to formulate a plan, take a look at who the potential free agents around are going to be, and figure out the holes that we need to fill. Clearly, with the potential losses of Anderson, Meza, and Bentley, probably will need to spend some time working on our offense this coming off season. But do think that with some of the youngsters that we brought up towards the end of the season in Contreras and Velasco, and then Rivera, who was up with us most of the year, as well as some of the other guys who are in AA and AAA in our system, we've got a decent amount of guys who can help our offense coming up. The kind of issue, and this is something that I've mentioned in responses to previous comments, is that although I feel like we've got a decent amount of help coming up through our system, with the possible exception of Contreras, I don't feel like there's superstar everyday players coming up through our system. And because of that, the trade market and or the free agent market may be the way to go. You know, over the last couple of years, we've added Romero and Josh Porter in the trade market, as well as Coma Duran and Meza. You can see the whole middle of our batting order against right-handed pitchers, 3 through 6, are guys that we've added over the last 2 seasons. Mike Broaden, guy that we traded for a little longer than that ago, and then guys who have come up through our system in Seifu, Estrada, Anderson, and Barrios, kind of the guys at the top and the bottom of the order. But still going to probably need to find another big scary bat for the playoffs, without a doubt. Definitely a bummer way to end a 118-win season. I'm expecting the haters, trolls, Flamers, whatever some people characterize themselves at, or more accurately, I characterize them at, to be out trashing the performance and getting on us, saying how we choked again, and I can't argue with it. A fourth straight year where we have a early exit in the playoffs, certainly not what we're looking for. Lost the divisional series in 2037 and 38. Wild card series a year ago when we didn't even win the division. Bounced back this year with, as I said, an all-time great regular season, but still lost 3 out of 5 games to the Dodgers, including those 3 losses in a row. So I don't think there's something intrinsically wrong with this team. Clearly, I'd love to have a huge bat like we used to have with Shamar Jenneret in the middle of the lineup. If we could afford a guy like that, that would be incredible. There is, I guess, if we move on from Juan Estrada and his $26 million salary, there is ability with the other money that we're already going to free up with Meza and Anderson moving on to potentially add a huge bat if one is available. And what did I do here too? Okay, there we go. Yeah, the upcoming free agents though, but it's all old guys. It's Colton Sims, who we've thought about in the trade market many times over the years, and he's generally been unwilling to waive his no-trade clause to us. Really good offensive player, obviously, but 37 years old at this point, doesn't bring much defensively, and likely to be looking for a lot of money. 39-year-old Michael Harris II, third baseman Nehemiah Sheriff. What is going on with him? Wow. I mean, he's got some home run power, and he walks, which keeps him in the lineup, but a 40 contact, 25 gap power hitter. I guess he is a very good defensive third baseman, although he's never won a Gold Glove or never been an All-Star, but certainly has some pop in the lineup. But an 89 WRC plus this year, and over the last 3 years, basically, when you add all that up, a kind of league average offensive player, and he could be one of the big potential free agents out there. I mean, honestly, you can see the lack of a market by Anderson and Bentley from our team, 38-year-old Dylan Cruz, our former guys Tim Gaglia, Tyreek Hardage, Tim Hull, soon-to-be former guy Daniel Meza, among some of the top free agents available. Doesn't seem like it's going to be an incredible class for offensive players. So obviously I'll be doing a lot more to figure it out offline and while we're kind of doing our season recap episode and then our minor league review episode over the next couple of days before I have to start making decisions on the likes of Estrada. But it doesn't seem like there's an obvious Shamar Jenneret type offensive player for the middle of the batting order available in free agency. We've got pitching assets in our system. Another thing that I've talked about in the comments with some is that could move on from Estrada, but we could also move on from Sincere Shazier. I mean, I like that Shazier is 3 years younger, and we've got him controlled at decent amounts for the next few years before those higher price team options potentially kick in. But with the youth that we have on our pitching staff, certainly Barbarito was our 5th starter this year, as we talked about. But we've also got Jim Lance, who's ready to be a starter at the major league level, and Ben Borjan, who certainly could be a starter at the major league level if we needed him to. Stamina not incredible, but he does have a 4-pitch arsenal. So if we move on from an Estrada or a Shazier, those guys probably do have some trade value, particularly when we look at Estrada for an extension for him as a two-way guy. He's looking for 6 years, almost $33 million a year. And Shazier is a good, proven, solid major league starter and not making an exorbitant amount of money. So I'd say that either of those guys could be helpful if we decide we need to make a trade for a huge bat for the middle of the lineup. Still going to have to give up probably multiple really good prospects to make something like that happen. But we do have options for us to consider as we try to tweak this team so we can go on a long postseason run, which we got used to doing. But the time when we got used to doing those long postseason runs was half a decade ago in game time at this point. And since our season is once again done by mid-October, I'll take a quick look at the top international amateur free agents, at least from a first look. Shortstop Jesus Casares looks pretty interesting. Contact, gap, power, and eye off the charts with incredible speed. Not the greatest base runner in the world, but a good potential bunter. 60 infield range. Don't love the low work ethic. No power at all, but otherwise a pretty interesting hitting profile. Don't think he's a major league shortstop, but someone will find out. Jesus Unzueta, 16-year-old out of Colombia. Oof. I mean, incredible home run power and incredible eye, but seems like he is going to struggle to make contact, struggle to avoid striking out. I mean, this guy is the prototypical 3 true outcomes type of player. Barely 16 years old, not a lot of range in the outfield. I mean, we've got very low scouting accuracy on him and pretty much a lot of these guys, as you can see. So we'll be learning a lot more over the next few months. Alfredo Acevedo out of Nicaragua. Looks like an average defensive catcher with a decent bit of pop in his bat, potentially. Taking a look at top pitchers, or I guess for our purposes, we'll just take a look at the top pitching prospect right now. David Mojica out of Venezuela. Might need that changeup to develop to be a starter because we don't think the splitter's really a major league quality pitch. If he fully develops, a pretty interesting left-handed pitching prospect, 16 years old, throwing in the low to mid-90s, decent stamina, decent holding runners. Certainly some potential with him, but we'll get to know a lot of these guys a lot better over the next 3 months before we need to make a decision on where we're going to try to spend our money in January. And adding insult to injury, our divisional rivals, the Phillies, who we were 20 games better than this year, just routed the Dodgers, who won 3 straight against us, taking 4 out of 4 in a 4-game sweep against the Dodgers in the NLDS. Can see over in the American League, both the Guardians and the Twins got picked off. Actually, the Padres got picked off too. It's kind of interesting. All 4 of the division winners got picked off in the divisional series, which is a bit of an odd result. Quite honestly, our 2 wins were the best that any team did, so that was a pretty depressing indictment on the value of the regular season there, with all 4 of the division winners from the 2040 season losing their first playoff series and losing by a combined 12 games to 4. But in the AL, The wild card winning Brewers and A's are in a 3-3 series, so a deciding game number 7 today, and I think that would likely be in Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, today in Vegas, Danny Baker against Kevin McBride to see who gets to face the Phillies in the World Series. And in the most taunting, vicious, hateful way possible, OOTP just made this flame out in the postseason even better with this pop-up that happened at the end of the regular season. Perfect score, you are an OOTP god. No, we've lost in the playoffs 4 years in a row. That should probably factor into the scoring there. Back to the playoffs, and the Brewers ended up facing the Phillies, and Brewers with a 4-3 win in the World Series. Feels like a Brewers-Phillies series could have happened about 40 years ago. The Phillies won it all in 1980, and I believe they lost to the Orioles in 83. The Brewers made the World Series in 82, where they lost to the Cardinals, I believe, but seems like something that could have happened about 40 years ago. That really didn't. Finally happens today, though, with the Brewers taking out the Phillies 4-3 here to finish off the 2040 season. And as we get ready for the offseason, going to have a lot of decisions to make. Team options on Nate Ruckel, Elvin Jimenez, and Juan Estrada, as we talked about. Our manager has retired, Alan Bowles, who took over for us after we moved on from GM/manager to GM only, and Bowles has retired after a nice run with us in Buffalo. Our new budget, $238 million. So I think that's a small bump. Yeah, 236 was the highest we had previously been. So we've got up to 238 for next year. Expanding the stadium a little bit last off season helped us generate a bit more money and get a slightly higher budget. Not going to necessarily be a revolutionary amount of money with an extra couple million to spend, but every little helps, as they say, I believe, in Tesco over in the UK in their advertisements from years ago. Upcoming free agent list, just checking to see if it happens to be any different as far as the batters. And yeah, one potentially different one added to the list. Daniel Rojas, first baseman from the Twins. 160 WRC plus, 6 WAR. Respectable defensively, 6'3". Clearly a pretty big bat. Strikes out an insane amount of time, but doesn't everybody these days? Gold Glove, perennial all-star, put up a 6.0 WAR. Looking at his batting stats over his decade in Minnesota, 292 homers, 977 ribbies. So you can see his 162 game average, 30 homers, 100 ribbies, 278 average, 135 WRC plus. Not Shamar Jenneret in terms of his bat, but certainly would immediately be the biggest bat on our offense if we were able to bring a player like him on board. Says he's going to be looking for $32-33 million a year, though, and there probably will be some competition for him. So that would be a tough guy to bring on board. You can see outside of him in his mid-30s, a few guys in their late 30s out there, and then the guys on our team, and then guys that we've thought seriously about in the past who are kind of perennial free agents at this point are also some of the more interesting guys out there. Our old buddy Andres Medina looks like, can't remember with the Dodgers. Yeah, I think the Dodgers did have an option year on him for this upcoming season, so they must have declined that, and it looks like he's looking for a bit less than that. Meza, as we talked about there, we seem to look at Brad Sanders every year. So I don't know exactly which direction we're going to go to try to get a different result in the playoffs next year. Obviously pleased with the pitching that we've got. We could certainly use another big bat in the middle of the lineup, and with Meza, Anderson, and Bentley all likely gone, I guess there's some small chance. I don't see it. I was going to say there's some small chance we'd bring Anderson back, and I think I'd want Anderson back in a perfect world. I don't know that I want Anderson back at almost $20 million a year, though. He's kind of a average-ish offensive player with a decent glove, a 3-WAR guy over the course of his career, as we talked about a little while ago. I don't think he's a $20 million player. I think he's a pretty useful guy, but I think with the fact that we've had him through his minimum salary and arbitration years as well as his 20s, and he's now 29 years old, going to be turning 30, likely towards the end of the World Series next year. Probably let someone else guarantee him 5, 6, 7 years at $18 to $20 million a year. But we'll have plenty of time to figure out an approach for free agency in the off season before we start moving things forward. Because, as I said, we'll do a full review on everybody who was on the team this year in our next episode, and that's always useful for me to start trying to think somewhat objectively about where we need to improve and how we might improve. And then we'll take a look at our minor league system and some of our former players in the episode after that, before we jump right into making some of these big off-season decisions. See if we can get a different result in the playoffs next year than we've gotten over the last 4 years. And we'll find out how we do on that front in our coming episodes. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.